Hello, and welcome to the Bearded Nomad Van Life. Figure I'd do a separate little quick review video here on the battery monitor. What we got here is the Linux, that's how I'm pronouncing it, Linux, the LTR16 battery monitor. Purchased on Amazon for like 30 some bucks, and basically it does everything that most of them do. Of course, when you pay the cheaper price, you're not going to be able to monitor it from your smartphone. But for me, unlike the Victron monitor, I don't need to see all that stuff on my phone, because I'm here with the van. When I want to see it, I'm already here. This thing gives you press the set once, it shows you your amps. Right now I'm drawing 3.892. Okay, that's fluctuating, but right now I have my fridge freezer combo is on, and I have 4 LED lights. That's the only thing drawing off. And my voltage, my battery isolator up under the hood should no longer be sending juice back here, for it should have dropped below the cutoff voltage. So when you hit on this one, you hit the left arrow once, it'll give you your voltage, and it's showing that I'm discharging right now because it's using and not having any input. If you hit the right arrow, it gives you your percentage. And then, like I said, you hit the set button once, it shows you your amps that it's using. And then you hit it again and it'll show you your amp hours. Now, with this one, when you want you to hook everything up, the I ain't gonna be able to see it very well. The shunt is back there. One few tips that I can give people is, if you use nice large size wire like I did for all my stuff coming from the battery up to here, and then that's my negative coming back off the fuse panel, going back down. If you're going to use anything, like 4 gauge and bigger, so that you know that your wires are sufficient for everything you're going to do. The one thing I recommend then, before installing this battery, the shunt, when you get everything, when it comes in the box, the 2 bolts on the shunt, when you take the nut and washer off, the bolt will just pop out the back. If you are going to be using larger gauge wire, do yourself a favor, pull that bolt out to go to the hardware store, get yourself a longer bolt, because on the one side, left side of the shunt, is your negative coming off your house batteries to the shunt. The other side of the shunt is everything else. Your chassis ground is going to go to that. Your negative coming from your fuse panel is going to go to that. Like in my case, the negative from my smart charger went to that. The negative from my power inverter went to that. So with everything that I had, that bolt technically was it's not really long enough. I had to fight and work to get all those wires on so that just right, so that I could get the nut started and crank it down to pinch everything nice and tight. So you'll want to go to the hardware store and get yourself the longer bolt, the same size just a little more length if you're using the larger gauge wire. Second part of that is make sure that you do put your chassis ground on the shunt. Lucky for me, I found a video online from a fella over in the UK, I think it was, where he hooked everything up. He hooked his negative from his fuse panel and the negative off his charger, and yet he left the chassis ground on the battery. And from what I can figure from his video is that this thing did not want to work properly at all because of that. Once he figured it out, he made the video so that way more of us could know what not to do. So I'm just going to throw that out there, that all negatives, the only negatives coming from your house battery is going to go to the input, the negative in on the shunt. Nothing else is going to be hooked to the negative side of your house batteries, other than your lines, pairing them together in whichever fashion your application is. Then, one thing that I realized after hooking it all up, now you have to you can set the parameters. So like, when you go to the amp hours, once you're there, if you actually hold the set button for 3 minutes, it flashes. Now with the arrows, you can make an adjustment. So I set mine up to the 200 amp hours that it is, and then you hit set. You set the amp hour, your max amp hours that you have for your battery, for however many house batteries you have. Then you will go to, when you go to the percentage. Now, of course, most people, when I put this in, my batteries had charged, but they weren't fully charged. Once you install all this and you hook up your line from the gauge, now I ended up using this. This came with, there's a length to a plug. Then they give you another section, a longer section of cable, the wires, depending on how far you're running away from your shunt for your display. I had to use the extension to put down, and then that plugs into the shunt, and then that connects here. Now, once you actually hook that up, this read pretty accurate, but when I shut it off, because I thought it was good, but then when it said it was full charged, and there was no longer any charge, this thing discharged really, really fast. So what I realized, and I read back over the instructions quite a few times, because the wording is a little confusing on some things, at least for me it was. And what I did was I used my smart charger, because when I plug in my shore power, this thing has its display that tells me with the flashing light when it goes to solid, 25%. The next one flashes, goes solid, that's 50%. The third one flashes, goes solid at 75%. And the final green light flashing, and I had, with the vehicle running and the shore power plugged in, when that went green, and what I had to do was I actually had to turn off my main disconnect. So that way my fridge and freezer was shut off, so I had nothing drawing on my house batteries. And by doing that, it allowed it to quickly charge up to a full 100%, and my smart charger, when the flashing green light went solid, then I knew I was 100%. Once that happens, when you guaranteed you're at 100%, and you come up here and this said 100%, you have to hold the set button for like 3 seconds or so, or 3 to 5 or 5 to 10 seconds. I think it was. Oh no! Wait a minute. Hold on. Having a moment. I want to make sure I'm not wording this wrong here. Hold on, I'll be right back. All right, good thing I checked there. I was wrong. Once I knew I was at a complete full 100% charge, with it on the percentage display, you hold this right arrow for 3 seconds. You hold it for 3 seconds, and it then lets everything inside of this. It lets it know that is full charge. Because most people with house batteries, you are not going. There's an option on there for discharge that if you knew you were down to complete zero, you could, once you got to zero, then you would hold the left arrow button for 3 seconds. But nobody that I know in the van life world or RV world is going to kill their house batteries and take life out of those batteries and shorten the time, considering what most of them cost. Now, I got AGM. I think both of mine together only cost me between $300 and $500. I think it was. They're Castle. I know I got them on Amazon, but the last time I went to look at them to see about getting maybe more or looking it up for somebody else, they were saying that they were no longer available. So I'm not sure how, what, or why that happened. But so yeah, pretty simple. I mean, I had to read over the instructions quite a few times on certain things. There's a few things that seem to be left out on the instructions. You know, for some of us, it just, for me, there was a few things. If it would have just been a little more specific, it would have been great, but it wasn't. So, but I figured it out. Pretty much anybody can. The wire, you'll have it from the shunt to your positive side where you have your power charging sources coming into your house batteries. Both of mine are on the same positive. And then from that positive terminal, you will use a very small gauge wire to run from that up to the shunt. There's a little area with two, at least with this one, with this setup, it has 2 inputs for a positive. I'm not sure why there's 2, but I only had to use one of them. Instructions give you the millimeter size wire. I looked up the conversion for it so that I knew what American standard gauge was for that range. Luckily, I had some in my electric bag from years ago doing stereos. So, pretty simple though. Personally, I'm very pleased with it because before I got that, I was trying to base my usage off of this voltage gauge, which this gauge is very accurate because it's always the same. It's pretty much the same. I'm showing 12.7. There's 12.6. When the van's running, they are both really, they get closer in accuracy. This is probably the farthest apart that I've seen the two of them since I installed the battery monitor. But going off of this, I would wake up in the morning and per this, oh my God, I thought my batteries were dead. Now that I have the battery monitor hooked up, even with the Max Air roof vent fan running, even on a hot, humid night, if I have the fan in the back corner running, with having both those fans on and the fridge and freezer combo running, the most I think I've used on any given night was like 20%. I was down into the low 80 percentile. And within like an hour of running the van or driving, I'm back to full charge. So, but yet having this to see what your percentage really truly is, and then seeing what the voltage was showing, that you can't go by this to have an accurate to judge it, because this was showing like 11.4 and my batteries were not anywhere close to being dead. So, but there's the Linux battery monitor. I'm very happy with it for 30 bucks, 30 some dollars from Amazon. Whole lot better than spending $200 on a Victron. And the only difference is that you get that you have an app, you can upload it to your phone, so that you can see all this information on your phone. To me, that's a gimmick. Nobody really truly needs all that. It's just a sales pitch is what it is. But, so, that's my review on that, and like I said, I'm very happy with it. It's been working beautifully. So, if you're looking for a battery monitor, this one